What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, it's Monday. I thought, you know what? Let's do a little mailbag at John Middlekauff, Instagram, fire in those DMs. Get your questions answered here on the show. We will start with Michael. If Daniel Jones continues to play like he did against Miami, do you think that could influence the Giants to fire Daboll, or maybe influence him to start Dart earlier than expected to help save his job? Well, they play Denver this week, which I think is on the opposite end of Miami in terms of defense. Miami is a joke defensively. I mean, their corners, it's like, I mean, I don't even think some of these guys would start on the best defenses in college. I mean, it's pretty embarrassing. So going against Denver is a completely different animal. And I'm not going to live on a weekly basis if I'm Giants ownership, if I would say the coach or the GM of the Giants. Like, they made their decision. It was the right decision when they cut him. Like, it was because he didn't, the divorce made sense. Now, if you want to rewind it to the contract, who was behind the contract? Who wanted the contract? Was that led by ownership, which by all accounts it was? I think there are a lot of variables here. But unless the guy like what Saquon did last year, Super Bowl, 2K, number one player in the league, non-quarterback, that would look bad, but he's not going to do that. He was always going to beat out Anthony Richardson. He's dramatically better than Anthony Richardson. So I think it's a bigger indictment on Anthony Richardson than it is on the Giants. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying I don't think it has much impact. With the Dolphins looking like an absolute disaster, do you think there is any chance of a baseball-like fire sale where the Fins trade off a significant number of vets? Edge rusher Phillips, Judon, Chubb, Achane, Hill, Waddle are all positions of needs for various contenders. Why don't more NFL teams make significant roster reductions at the deadline like we see in Major League Baseball or the NBA? I think the best way, I guess, to approach it is in baseball a lot of times, right? If I'm selling a guy, typically I'm like this, the Pirates aren't going to sell Paul Skeens until they have to pay him $500 million. Right? In football, I can pay whoever I want. The lowest quote-unquote money teams relative to the quote-unquote rich teams, everyone has money to pay their players. So if I like Jalen Waddle, I've already paid Jalen Waddle. I want Jalen Waddle on my roster if I'm going to fire everybody because the new coach is going to want to work with that guy. Same thing, in theory with Chubb or some of these guys. Now, like Tyreek Hill, what's his value? I think it would vary team to team. I mean, there are teams that are just not going to mess with him. Now, like, would Andy ever go down that road? I would guess no. Would the Bills? They need defense. So who's really messing with him? The pass rushers and defensive linemen for sure, but I just don't think that's how teams really think. Occasionally, like a fire sale with a veteran player. Remember when they traded Von Miller? But that was because they weren't going to re-sign him. So I think teams go, we want to have assets on our team. And why am I going to trade Jalen Waddle, who's one of the best players on my team, if the best offers I'm getting are like third-round picks? Even if I'm getting second-round picks. I drafted the guy high. He's been really productive. Why am I just giving him away to someone else? So I don't need the cap flexibility. I want to have good players on my team. So I think in baseball, it typically has to do with money. In basketball, it doesn't happen as much as it used to, really. Unless a guy demands a trade. Big fan of the pod. Appreciate it. Who's this? This is Robert. Question. After last night, can the media and the talking heads finally have a conversation about John Harbaugh? I've been saying for 3 years, we outplay the best teams, but get outcoached every single time. After last night and the other countless games we've lost like this, I don't understand how he couldn't be on the hot seat. I get it. It's week one, and it sounds like an overreaction, but a lot of our fan base has been tired of Harbaugh. Just go on a Ravens page after a game or go to a Ravens game and people are tired of them. And just one quick example from last night. The offensive drive where we could have ended the game. How, as a head coach, are you okay with the play calling sequence? A jet sweep on 2nd and 10 when you run that play 4 fucking times already? You got guys crowded in the box? Unreal. Well, he's not the offensive play caller. So that is where the CEO head coach sometimes, and he's a defensive guy. Listen, his resume speaks for itself. He's won a lot of games. But I think we need to now ask ourselves, they have an all-time great quarterback. They have an all-time great organization. Their team is always loaded. You're watching them last night, you're like, God, they got good players everywhere. Even the first rounder a couple years ago from Clemson, Wiggins, they drafted that guy at the end of the first round. And he's just making plays out there at DB. I mean, every single time they draft guys, they're just good. So he has an organization that drafts players at an extremely high level. They hit a home run with the quarterback, even making moves like Derrick Henry. And it just goes how are they not winning a Super Bowl? I'm not betting on them to win a Super Bowl just because something about their organization. It's losing that game last night is kind of symbolic of the John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson experience. Now, you ain't firing Lamar Jackson. My question is this, and this is where I think these teams get in a tough spot. Let's say you win 13 games and you get knocked out in the second round. The Bills, the Chiefs, whoever beat you. Who are you hiring? Because I think that's always the pushback is who are you hiring? Because if I fire John Harbaugh, what is the landscape of coaches? Last year, are you firing John Harbaugh for Mike Vrabel? Probably not very similar guys. I would say they're kind of carbon copy of the type coach, right? Ben Johnson, though, I can get Ben Johnson with Lamar Jackson? I would have done that. Now, you're not going to fire him last year, but I think that's the question you have to ask before we just fire him. Because you're not just going to blindly fire John Harbaugh. But that loss, and they had some of them last year, he's a defensive tough guy, and sometimes their teams just kind of fall apart. Now, I don't put Derrick Henry fumbling on him, and, sometimes great offense beats great defense nowadays in the NFL because of the rules, right? I think the Ravens are pretty good on defense, but there are certain rules and limitations that you can't just decapitate people like you could back in the day. So it makes comebacks more possible, a lot like in the NBA with the three-point shot. I think in 2007, you would just be so physical that the Josh Allen and they couldn't have come back. But nowadays, the rules on the side of offense, and just naturally sometimes teams let their guard down. But he's going to become a really polarizing coach. Sean McDermott's pretty polarizing. And they're basically doing the same thing. And if we just he won a Super Bowl. Well, yeah, back in 2012. It's 2025. In 2012, I worked for the Philadelphia Eagles. That was a long time ago, right? Think about what you were doing in 2012. Some people, if you're 25, I mean, that would have been 13 years? You were 12 years old. Didn't even have hair on your arms or on your nuts. We are extremely excited to announce our new presenting sponsor, HardRock Bet. Everyone knows and loves their hotels and casinos, but now you can use the top-rated HardRock Bet sportsbook to place all your NFL bets this season. HardRock Bet is the only legal sportsbook in the state of Florida and is also available in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, and Colorado, with more states to come. You can also play on HardRock Bet's online casino if you are in New Jersey. As we gear up for the NFL season, sign up for HardRock Bet and make a $5 bet, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Head over to HardRock Bet, sign up, and make your first deposit today. I'm currently watching the Dolphins get boat raced by the Colts. I think it's inevitable that they trade Tyreek this season, though I don't think they will be able to get quite the haul that some might think given his age and contract. Let me emphasize that. They will not get a haul for Tyreek. They would just be giving him away. With Worthy going down week 1, and the Chiefs obviously still amongst the best in the AFC, but may need a little boost with the wide receiver injury suspensions, what % odds do you see are an in-season trade of Tyreek going back to the Chiefs. What kind of trade package would the Chiefs have to give up for a year or two of Tyreek? You never know, things change, and anytime that you come up short in the Super Bowl, I think I saw the headline today: Worthy is day to day, so it's not like he's going to miss a month. Like George Kittle today, the hamstring injury, like he's going to be out a month. Like that's going to be a minute. By all accounts, Worthy is not going to miss that much time. I was told pretty reliably, I'd safe to say I know a lot of people there, that that's never happening again. Now this was, I don't know, 8 months ago. Just because like going into the offseason, I was starting to think like, could Tyreek get traded? Could the Chiefs get him for like a third or a fourth round pick? And I think that ship sailed by all accounts. Now you can never say never. Uh, Andy could change his mind. Veach has a lot of influence. Maybe he could talk him into it. Maybe Veach is not that interested. And so I would, as sitting here on September 8th, I would say that's not happening. Question for the bag from Gilbert, Arizona, my neighbor. My buddy and I were debating what's better to have: Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, or Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Burrow, or Lamar. If you're starting a team from scratch and you have the number one pick in a complete do-over, for the league, so players and coaches can be taken, do you take the quarterback or a coach with the number one pick? You would take the quarterback. You would 1,000,000% take the quarterback. Now, at what quarterback do you get where you go, I'd rather have Andy Reid? And I think you're talking like 6 or 7, because the list you gave, it would be Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow in some order. I think a lot of people would take Josh Allen number one, but Mahomes, I think in everyone's order it would go somewhat Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, or Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. Then I think Lamar and Burrow, depending on what type, I guess who's making this pick, a GM or an owner, because Lamar easily could go 3. But I think there would be some people taking Burrow. But regardless, they would go 4. I think Herbert and Jaden Daniels in some order would go 5 and 6. I think once you got past them, it's like, would I rather have Andy Reid or CJ Stroud? I'd rather have Andy Reid. Would I rather have Kyle Shanahan or CJ Stroud? I'd rather have Andy Reid. Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts. Like, would I rather have Jalen Hurts or Andy Reid? Come on, I'd rather have Andy Reid. So it shows you, like, these guys. Jalen Hurts has won a Super Bowl, played really well. So I think that line gets drawn pretty quick. It's only the quarterbacks that I know 100% can carry a coach. If you need coaching with your quarterback, like Jared Goff, Jordan Love, all those type guys, I'm going coach. Because would I rather have like Andy Reid with Dak Prescott, Kyle Shanahan with Brock Purdy, or would I rather have Jalen Hurts and Zach Taylor? The question was, pre-Chargers game might not be the year for Kansas City. As a Kansas City resident and fan, I'm devastated. Listen, they played in that game a million times last year. Everyone I've seen talk about that game going, God, they just didn't look that good. They kind of look like they did last year. Like, that's how they play. They're comfortable in that environment. Now, their defense was getting shredded. Not ideal. I also think they don't, the way they operate in the preseason, he gets after it. They're big on peaking in November and December. Are you probably going to win the Super Bowl? Odds would be stacked against you. You're going to make your 6th Super Bowl in 7 years or whatever. Probably not, but you're going to be good. You're going to be okay. Coaching's too good. Big game this week. I think it's pretty insane that they're an underdog at home against the Eagles. And that's pretty crazy. I would expect the Chiefs to come out and play pretty well. I like the Chiefs in that game. With the NFL expanding and going more global than ever, do you think there will ever be a time where there is an 18-game schedule with one international game every week? If so, where could it end? Could there ever be an international Super Bowl? Just curious on your thoughts. I've been asked this question before. I do think it's inevitable when we get to 18 games, there's going to be an international package. So basically like Thursday Night Football that starts this week and goes till like Christmas. So basically every team, it used to be every team had to play on Thursday Night Football. Now you can get doubled up because of TV ratings. I do think it's inevitable in the new television deal that starting week 2 or week 3, up until probably a week before Christmas, every team will play an international series. Now, the difference between the international series and the Thursday night games, a team like Jacksonville or just Miami, whoever, East Coast teams in London, in Germany, and whatever, could double up and play back to back home games. But I do think that the next television setup, however, when I say deal, I mean, I saw YouTube had 17 million people watching the game. What game would that have been? That was a Chiefs game. Thursday Night Football had like 30 million people, and that was down because there was a big rain delay for an hour. Don't blame anyone for turning it off. I would say this that however it plays out with Netflix, Amazon, Fox, ABC, CBS, a lot of moving parts, obviously. I think we get for 15 straight weeks a 6:30 Pacific Standard Time kickoff, which as someone on the West Coast, I listen. I like getting up Sunday morning. Now that I've actually really morphed as I've gotten older. Like I don't do anything on Saturday night anymore. Those days are over because Sunday's just too long of a day. I got to be clear headed. I can't be hungover at all. So I basically treat it like most human beings would treat a Monday, and I'm out of bed at like 6:15, 6:30, and try to be at the gym by 7:30. And because I want to do some physical activity before I'm just sitting all day, which again, I'm not complaining about making money off of watching football, but like when you just sit on your couch for essentially 9 hours and do multiple podcasts, I got to do some activity in the morning, and I don't really have time during the day because football's on. So I don't want that morning game. Now maybe I wouldn't even care anyway because sometimes they're on, I'm like not even paying attention, but I do think it's inevitable, and I don't know if that's what people want, but I don't want to speak for everyone else because I'll tell you where I stand on the Monday night doubleheader. I guess I understand it from they can accumulate more total viewers, but I thought a huge part about playing a primetime game Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night is getting it to yourself. That's a really, really big deal. It used to be a really big deal when I was at Fresno State that the Mountain West Conference or the WAC conference at the time had contracts with ESPN for Friday night games. So you would get a Friday night game against Boise, against Nevada, or whatever, and you were the only game on television. So it was a really big selling point. It's like, hey, we're just the only football game Friday night on television around the country. Well, that's clearly over. Coming off the calf scare, did you see Kyle run CMC 22 times and target him 9 times in the passing game? It's the most touches he's gotten since week 15 in 2022. Does the guy even make it to October? I know that was Robinson's first game and his usage will go up, but holy shit, man. Do you think Kyle makes the same mistakes again, driving him into the ground? I Sometimes the Niners can be weird with injuries. Obviously, they get injured a lot, but for him to leave practice on Thursday and then Friday not really do anything, but then be interviewed after practice on Friday and say I'm completely fine, and then like you say, I mean, he accounted for almost 150 yards in the passing game and in the running game, and he has just taken shot after shot. Kyle's not a big spread the wealth around. And I appreciate Brian Robinson. I definitely liked him a couple years ago, and I'm not going to make any overarching judgments based on one performance, but he looked a little slow to me. I don't know if they traded for him to motivate their other guy, Garendo, because Garendo last year toward the end of the season was coming on. He's a Blazer, the big running back from Louisville. But they clearly just traded for Brian Robinson, immediately made him the two. I thought there was one play on it was like a pitch play where Trent Williams pulls. He's like a left tackle and he pulls like basically kind of like runs a loop toward the DB slash safety. And if Brian Robinson could cut it inside, it would have been like a 40-yard gain. McCaffrey would have busted out a big run. But he just ran into Trent, who's literally blocking the DB or safety into the water cooler, and he runs into him. So wasn't that impressed. Now, again, game one, win's a win, but their backup running back situation is atrocious. I understand the criticism against the Patriots. They look terrible in the second half. However, I think you're putting too much blame on Drake Maye. He threw 46 passes, and in the first half, they were letting him throw 10 to 20 yards down the field. I think the bigger problem was their inability to run the ball for most of the second half. Henderson had 5 carries. That won't cut it. I think it's impossible for a young quarterback to succeed when the team abandons the run. Also, the secondary was horrendous. Listen, I here's what I'll say about Drake Maye. He just didn't pass the eye test yesterday. It doesn't mean he sucks. It doesn't mean that it wasn't just an outlier bad game. My expectations were higher. But I also said yesterday that I have just assumed Josh McDaniels is a good play caller. Like Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell, Kyle, LaFleur. We have seen those guys work with countless different quarterbacks, kind of tweak their offense, change stuff, make things happen. What if Josh McDaniels is only good with Tom Brady? What if that's the only way he can operate? That's very possible, right? And Drake May's downfall might be that he got Josh McDaniels forced on him. Because let's be real, that wasn't Vrabel's guy. That was the Crafts. And part of getting a job like Mike got is like you're not going to battle the owner and the quote unquote boss on everything. Some things you give in on. And it's like, who were his options? He couldn't get Arthur Smith. He couldn't get some of his guys. So he's like, yeah, we'll just, in theory, it makes some sense. But what if Drake, too much is on his plate? There's something like, I don't want to say unnatural, but something was just missing. Again, doesn't define his career. My expectations for him might have been unfairly high, but I just saw a guy that just was like a little robotic, wasn't that fluid making plays, just looked a little out of sorts. Now, he doesn't have the most talented group around him. As someone DM me, Will Campbell looked like a tiny little dude getting smoked. Now, he was banged up too. But yeah, I mean, the Raiders worked him. I mean, if you think about it, and Colin and I talked about this, the Raiders have the best player in the game. They have the second best player in the game. They have the quarterback advantage. Like, Geno is a much better player right now than Drake Maye. Honestly, it's not even close. Raiders' offensive line's playing well. Raiders are just better coached. But I got Chip Kelly out here scheming guys open left and right. He hasn't worked in the NFL in forever. And Skinny Josh, the Patriot guys all get on Ozempic. Once, Patricia's on it, McDaniel's clearly on it. These guys lose a ton of weight. Um, Still can't call play. Patricia can, but he's got a little easier at Ohio State. Can I tell you about my friends at Mando? Here's the thing. Summer is upon us. Where I live, I think it's 110 degrees today. And I'm a sweater. And I don't like smelling. So the key with Mando and their deodorant, it has sweat control. So not only does it block the odor all day, but it controls my sweat. I don't like to just be soaked if I'm just walking outside to grab something out of my car. And here's the thing. It was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. So all the products, they're baking soda free, and you can choose from a variety of fresh scents like bourbon leather, Clover Woods, Mount Fuji is the one I use, or just the go-to Pro Sport. Want to try America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now? You can find them in Walmart, Target, and other retailers around the country. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid starter deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like Mini Mando body wash or deodorant wipes, love those, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. Use the code JOHN, that's JOHN, at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. shopmando.com. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Mando's got you covered. Protect your pits, baby. Smell great doing it. Morning. Maybe the Lions should try to snag Mike McDaniel for the OC when he's fired. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here. I don't know the guy. This is nothing against him personally. Feels like football guys really like him. But why would they never make Johnny Morton their offensive coordinator? Sean Payton loved him. John Gruden loved him. Well, why didn't they make this guy their offensive coordinator? Now he's 55 and he takes over this offense that everyone's like, oh, it's just a loaded offense. Then you realize, well, they lost their center to retirement. They lost a guard to the Titans. So there's only 5 guys on the offensive line. So I just removed 40% of it. And there was a big part of like the ingenuity, creativity, and just instincts of Ben Johnson that made the operation pretty special. Remember when they did the fake fumble? Because Jordan Love against the Bears tripped and fell, and everyone froze, and then he got up and he threw the touchdown. And Ben Johnson tried to, replicate that same thing with Jared Goff, and he told him to fumble on purpose. And then Goff's like, "Oh, I can't fumble on purpose." He's like, "Well, can you kind of fall halfway?" And they kind of figured it out. Like, is Johnny Morton bringing that to the table? And here's the other thing: whenever I hear, because I saw Dan Campbell say this in an interview sometime during training camp, he was bragging, and I don't mean this like he wasn't trying to hype the guy up. He was just saying it's crazy how often Johnny Morton is in the facility. Essentially saying he's got like the Gruden in him. He's there at the crack of dawn. Like, I do not care. I have never once been told how many hours Ben Johnson works. Probably works a lot, but it does not matter. Honestly, sometimes that scares me. Like, are you not smart enough? Like, you're there 3 a.m. till 12 p.m. Are you not good enough? Because if you're working that long at this point in time in your career and not moving up the ladder, like, I just got you red flagged. Like, I do think defensively, they will be okay. We have seen this transition. We saw it in Baltimore. High level defensive coordinator. They go with the former player, and it just takes a little time, but it works out. So I do think same type deal. Aaron Glenn, who's also a former player, they go with the linebacker coach, former player. Like, I do think it's going to be okay. Offensively, though, that is not like, because part of defense, motivation, toughness. Obviously, you got to have the schematics, but I think they'll be okay. Offensively, I would be terrified. Do you think there's a chance that Nick Saban would go to Florida in light of Billy's struggles and inability to cement himself in the program? I think Saban's done. I think the big difference for like Pete Carroll and obviously Bill, if Atlanta would have hired him, I think deep down, like the business didn't change. So they just thought, like, hey, my time ran its course. I got fired, whatever. I still want to coach in the NFL. The salary cap, trades, the draft, like, fair or not, like, they believe they can do it. Belichick believes. It's funny. I had so many people texting me, like, do you think you pissed them off? Like, piss them off. Guys, they're embracing this. They hate, Bill and Lombardi hate the NFL right now, especially the Patriots. This was not some story. If I had leaked, let's say like a month ago, and I'm not, let's say I texted Howie. I'm like, hey, you want Micah Parsons? He's like, yeah, I'm trying to get him right now. Jerry will never trade him to us, but I'm throwing some stuff on the table. I put AJ Brown and 2 1s on the table. Let's just hypothetically, obviously it didn't happen, but let's say I just put that out there. Well, Howie would be furious. He's like, you can't. I told you that in confidence. This is not, these people didn't tell me this. This is just Bill, who hates the Patriots. And every human knows it. This isn't something people are trying to hide. This isn't some under the wrap story. So, like, Saban has said, like, I don't like NIL. This thing ain't fair. And I think the SEC programs, and he mentioned this on College Game Day, are at a disadvantage. It's why, in theory, like North Carolina, they got some big pockets, but, is Belichick going to be a tightwad and not pay the guys money? But he's not coming back. So I think Saban's retired for good. Other than that, yeah, we'll wrap up on that one. So Billy Napier, start packing that office right now, buddy.